By the time I'm my parents' age, I want to be work optional. Not because I don't want to work. Both of my parents are still working and they're 69 and 70. They love it. They're entrepreneurs through and through, and they build careers around doing what they love every single day. And I absolutely want that for myself. But I also want what most entrepreneurs in their 60s and 70s don't have. I want the choice. If you're a business owner watching this video is about the one asset that gives you the choice. So let me set the scene. I'm an only child of two entrepreneur parents. My mom has built her career in the beauty industry, my dad in his as an attorney with his own practice. They've been in business pretty much their whole lives, and they've been entrepreneurs in their respective fields pretty much my entire life. So, as their only child, I grew up working for free and with a front row seat to two very different versions of what it looks like to run a business. I saw the early mornings, the risk, the decisions you make alone, the sacrifices you make, and the way that your identity becomes parallel to the work over time. I also saw something that most people don't get to see. I saw what it looks like to genuinely love your work for 40 years, to want to keep showing up because the work itself is the reward. Both of my parents are doing that right now at 69 and 70. And really, that's the dream, to love your work enough to never want to stop. But here's the question I started to ask myself as I got older and as I started building my own career as an entrepreneur. There's a major difference between working because you want to and working because you have to. For my parents, it's the first one. But for a lot of entrepreneurs in their 60s and 70s, it's the second. And the difference between those two outcomes usually comes down to one thing: what asset is paying you alongside the work? Because here's the math: when you run a business, your money is tied up in the business, your hours are tied up in the business, and your risk is tied up in the business. The business is your career. It's also your wealth building vehicle. It's also your retirement plan, whether you've named it that or not. And that works great as long as the work is something you can keep showing up for. But that's not how life works. What if life shifts? What if your body changes its mind? What if your family needs you somewhere else? What if the industry changes? What if you just decide one day that you're done? The version of work optional I want for myself, and the version I think every entrepreneur should have access to, is the one where the income doesn't stop just because the work does. And that's what commercial real estate is built to do. So here's what I do and why I do it specifically for entrepreneurs. I help business owners stop renting their commercial space and start owning it, the building they already operate from or the next one that they move into. For an attorney like my dad, that's the office building his practice runs from. He could own that building. He could have two or three tenants in there paying his mortgage every month while his practice essentially operates rent free in that space. For a beauty industry professional like my mom, the same model: the salon, the studio, the spa owned by her, other tenants covering the operating expenses. For you, whatever business you run, same model. You buy the building, you take the one unit, you rent out the others. They pay your mortgage. The asset appreciates quietly while you keep doing the work that you love. And here's the most important part of this video: this is not about pulling you away from the work that you love to do. If you love your work at 70, keep going. The building doesn't care, it pays you either way. If life shifts and you want to slow down, the building keeps paying you whether you show up that day or not. If you want to keep going forever, like my parents are choosing to, then beautiful. The cash flow becomes a bonus, not a necessity. That is the asset that gives entrepreneurs the option. So, why am I focused on entrepreneurs specifically? A few reasons. You already thinking ROI, and most people don't. So, you're already wired for this. You already have the financial infrastructure, business income, credit, operating an entity. You qualify for financing that other people don't have access to. So, things like the SBA 504 loan, which lets you buy commercial real estate with as little as 10% down, is available to you. I'll do a separate video on that, so make a note and make sure that you come back. You already need the space, and you're also already paying rent. So the question isn't whether to add an obligation, it's whether the obligation you already have is going to build your equity or someone else's. And here's the one I want to say directly, because I think about this all the time for my parents: it's not too late. Commercial real estate isn't something that you do in your 30s and 40s and miss the window on. There are entrepreneurs in their 60s closing on commercial buildings every single month. The SBA loan that I mentioned has terms up to 25 years. So the math still works at 65 and it still works at 70. If you're an entrepreneur in your 60s and you've been signing rent checks for 30 years, the door is still open. It's a different conversation than it would have been at 40, but it's still very much a conversation that is worth having. Let me show you how easy the math is on this. So imagine a $1 million commercial property. Could be a strip center, a small office building, or a mixed use property. So 25% down is $250,000. But with an entrepreneur loan, the SBA 504, for example, that could be as low as 10% or $100,000. Your business takes one unit. The other units rent for around $8,000 a month total. So if your mortgage is roughly $5,500 a month, that's a $2,500 positive cash flow every month, while your business operates essentially rent free. So in 25 years, when the loan is paid off, you own $1 million asset, which by then it will most likely be worth way more than that. And it's been quietly paying you the entire time. So if you are 45 today, that asset is fully paid off when you're 70. If you're 60 today, you still got 25 years of equity build and 15 to 20 years of growing cash flow. If you're like me and somewhere in the middle, you're building the foundation for the version of work optional you want at 70. There are 5 numbers I run on every property before I let an entrepreneur put an offer in. They're NOI, cap rate, DSCR, cash on cash, and GRM. And each one of those will get its own video, so make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss them. Here's who I'm for. I'm for the entrepreneur who's been writing a rent check for years and has started to wonder what happens if they don't. I'm for the entrepreneur who isn't trying to retire, they just want to build the choice and have the option. I'm for the entrepreneur who's noticed that their wealth is concentrated in one place, the business, and they want an asset that doesn't depend on them showing up every single day. I'm for the 65-year-old who thinks that they've missed the window. They didn't. And I'm for me. I'm an entrepreneur building this work the same way that I'm telling you to build yours. By the time I'm my parents' age, I want every dollar of work I do to be a choice. I do this work because I grew up watching 2 of the people I love the most build careers that they are proud of. And I want them to keep loving their work as long as they want to. And I want every entrepreneur watching this to have the same option. I'm Lexi Sims. I'm a commercial real estate advisor in Houston, Texas. And if you're ready to start the conversation about owning your space, the link is in the description. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss the next video, and I'll see you in the next one.